So, if you guys had a little bit of struggle yesterday, and this is actually, regardless of yesterday, this is something to do for the rest of your trading career, really. If you had issues with this, right, your job today is to get back to basics, right? It's to follow structure with the current trend until it breaks and then trade what you see, not what you think, and get back to basics, right? So from this low at the midpoint of our higher time frame zone here, right? We tapped into this SNDR, gave us a little bit of a move yesterday for sure, back up into the higher time frame range. You could argue that since it was a higher time frame move, we're actually heading here to stay there. There you go. To the 80s, right? But I'm looking at, we didn't trade into here and stop. We actually traded briefly stopping here, which tells me that this is actually the move here that we're looking at, that midpoint there. And that's important because it determines the time frame that we're looking at in terms of this versus our higher time frame. Okay, so few legs down into this midpoint, finally trading back probably to the midpoint of this larger zone here. You could argue that, but let's put it here, right? 65.75, which oddly became the low of day. I was refining it a little bit for those of you guys that were in the post market, or not post market, but that's a stream at the end of the day, right? But this zone provided the bounce, and now we're grinding up. Now, as always, what we do when we analyze the strength of this trend is we look at the structure that's created and what's going on with it. So, for example, we have this low, right? This isn't considered the first. We have an internal 1, right? You actually have 2 here and then 3 immediately following it. And now we have 4. So the next one would be our 5th swing. So we're getting on in this lethargic movement up, which is going to lead to a rejection. We don't really know where, right? We don't have anything other than this before the origin of this move, which I'm expecting the high to get taken because of the strength of this push. We're creating structure on the 1 minute, which is going to eventually lead to rejection. Yes, right? This is considered a swing here. You've got another one here, obviously, right? That is not one. Right, so first, nothing internal, so we consider this our first. 1, 2, 3. And we'll see if we get a 4th in here. Right, so this will lead to rejection, whether it bounces off of this area that broke this uptrend, right, this manipulation leg, or this consolidation. This will be an area I would expect a speed bump, but I'm not looking for shorts until we break structure. As it stands right now, it looks like we're heading above that high and then the midpoint of the prior zone. Do we have news today? We have Powell on the mic at 10 a.m. Powell on the mic at 10 a.m. Fun times. How's everybody's morning going? Just got home. Legend. Spike down, spike back up. It'll be interesting. Interesting day for sure. Looks like you guys killed Asia last night. It looks like it was a lot of fun as well. Some nice retracements, some double bottoms in here. A little bit of two-way in here. Oh, did you guys not stream last night? Sorry, I saw Stotts' P&L. I thought you guys flew it. It's nothing doing until here. Nothing doing until here. We'll see if we get a clear out of everything that's not part of structure. If we do that on the 15, you could see it fly down to 37. Yeah, I saw you kill it, Stott. That's why I thought you guys were on last night. Hopefully Mikey and Chunk are okay. I know that he's having issues. Let's print is right. I'm expecting to at least test this SMDR here, or this zone, sorry, on the 1 minute. Might have to trade back up first and then come into it. I'm looking at, got 7 minutes to open. Even if we fail above, we're likely going to be testing above here. And this would likely be failure. I'm in no hurry to short. I'm looking for longs until we get to our spot. Until structure breaks. If structure break, that is. I suppose this was technically a zone. Didn't we have that earlier? This might give you your trade back into the area. If we're going to head lower, that is. The reason that I like the 50 or the lower one is because we're sweeping above this 15-minute candle. Should this pressure continue, right, then we're looking here, which would take us into that zone, right? Now, that might give you a bounce, but unless this 15-minute area holds at the top of this zone, in reality, we should be looking at this imbalance coupled with this down move and the midpoint. Oops. Okay. 925 candle coming in, 10 seconds. Really, is that all you're going to give us here?
Order submitted.
All right, so I'm looking at this flap top for target, 64.50 at minimum. You guys are probably break even already if you did take this. It's having trouble going already. Proximity of time is a factor for sure. There's the midpoint. That was rough.
Order canceled.
Right down. Okay. Tapped into that imbalance. Hasn't quite hit the midpoint, but that was strong reaction for sure. This is a valid top, I suppose, but not quite as high as I think it's going to go yet.
Order submitted. Order submitted. Order canceled.
Ooh. What do we get here? Trade back into the prior zone. Interesting. Still didn't break this. Technically broke 1 minute structure, but I like this larger area. Just be cautious. Right? This area has to hold. Ideally, this SNDR does as well. It's not this SNDR that I really want to see. I'd rather see this have a bit of a wick. We've got this imbalance here as well. But this was violent push, so I'm cautious. There's your midpoint, no real sweep and failure. And down it goes. Challenging protected low long, but you might get a trade back up to the midpoint here. And if it decides that it's going to be a higher time frame shove, then we'll know pretty quick. Well, by pretty quick, I mean 12 minutes.
Order submitted.
She's going to rally. She's going to rally now. Or at least trade into that imbalance.
Order canceled. Order submitted.
This is caution on both sides. Feels like it wants to continue going down. It's shoving hard, but it can't do anything.
Order submitted.
Right? So really good defense here. There's the push, finally. At least into this imbalance, which will likely take us back down. Should we hold here, then we get our move, right? The expectation is if this is 15-minute failure, which is difficult to read, of course, then what happens, right? Then all we've done is sweep out everything. We've got everybody interested short. We finally got our trade back up to the midpoint, right? But if we fail this protected low on the 15, then it takes us higher. Right? But for us to do that, we need a little bit more confirmation than this, right? So we need the market attempt to sell off and fail. And if it just goes like this, well, what I typically don't like about imbalance trading is when it takes that long. I like it to have unfinished business and go. Now there's two imbalances here, right? So that shows eagerness, but that's also at 9:30. So all eyes are on this area here, specifically this fractal.
Order submitted.
Right? Still haven't traded down to either of these, but I like how it's holding this so far.
Order submitted.
lot of indecision. You're either going to get a short squeeze or it's going to have to come down further. I just took my long off there. We'll see if I get a re-entry if there's a poor bar. I was expecting a little bit more. Could be wrong, for sure. Right, I'd really like to trade back up into here. I like this location. I took it off of this sweep failure. Failure in here. That low is 43. This high was 43. So we're still one tick technically. We'll see if we get any higher. No internal swings. Right? And the entire premise was the failure at the 15-minute low. Right? So if we come up and fail, then we might have to take this again. We'll see. If we get a repeat of yesterday. I think bears need to do a little bit more than this. Right. Now we might have left that one tick, sure. If we continue to sweep below this candle, then this low, and by extension this at 49 would be in jeopardy. But we've got to fail in here. Otherwise, we just leave that little one tick gap and just go. Still like the 15-minute PA, but this is grinding without flying. Don't like that. Let's see if I can do it now. get going. Right now my target is this. Full transparency, this is the position that I'm in. That wick was a little violent. I wasn't really a fan of how it traded back into it, but we'll see if this pushes or if it fails. If it fails, then I'm gone. I'm not going to play around with this today. Yesterday was brutal for long, so the expectation of the weekly candle is at least a little bullish today. Now you could argue we've already kind of got that this morning in over Asia. Right? Body closure, moving my stop. Right? So body closure above this candle, liked that, showing strength. And I'm flat. Okay. We'll see what this brings. You guys staying safe? Anybody grab anything so far? Or are we sitting in this chop? That's a little bit of annoying. Right? Still like, well, 19. So actually closed at the low. Did fail. Yeah, there's probably no reason of getting out long. There's probably no reason. But given the 9:30 shove, 1 minute structure being bearish. Yeah, I don't like how that wasn't taken either. Aziz made a good point. But it was also the order flow that occurred here. The bars don't really tell that story as you do, right? We want to see expansionary movement. Now it ends up being expansionary, right? But with about 5 seconds to go, this was a bear bar. Challenging. Yeah, this is kind of what I was hoping to see, at least trading back into this area here, right? So this low to that high. Predicated upon the 15-minute failure, and then we have our fractal in here that's showing strength. And now look at it. Ah. Cautious of shorts. We do have a weak high. And a lot of firepower. Now recall that our 15-minute swing count is getting up there in number. Right? We've got 1, 2, 3. Technically, it's not even a swing. Right, our last swing was here, which it tapped into. Right, I like this consolidation that yielded strong price action. That's why I had this area marked out. Right, but in theory, I suppose that's not really correct. We have this being our swing, which we just tapped into. So still bullish structure on the 15, even with this. Your 5 is probably bearish, be my guess. Yeah. Right, breaking here. You could definitely argue a change in order flow. If. But we've got some Friday targets higher, and our weekly objective, or sorry, our daily objective hasn't been met on either side. Right, so the daily would be, for example, yesterday we swept above this candle, which would be the expectation. Cool. We then traded below it. Our expectation would be similar to how we read the 1 minute. Tapping back into here, should we get failure, we then go below the low of the candle, which is the daily objective. Not really liking that for a top, but it is good location. Right, so when you guys are building accounts, what you want to do is get in line with, similar to what we talked about with basics, right? You want to get in line with what your order flow is doing on your 15-minute chart, and then use your 1 for entry. And that keeps you out of fake flips and nonsense on the 1 minute structure until you're able to see both charts somewhat effectively on the same chart, if that makes sense. So we're only looking for longs until when? Until this low breaks. Right? That doesn't mean we're taking every sweep we see, right? Those of you guys in the premium know the importance of the SMDR and everything that we're looking at.
Order submitted. Order submitted.
Violent push down.
Order canceled.
Target filled. Right? So why this instead of this one here? Or this down here? I suppose you ICT bros will look at this as, I don't know, is that an order block for you guys? Right? I look at strong down pressure, spiked up, body closure, cool. Here's your retracement. This is where the market made a decision to fly. Not here. That's where the market made a decision. Just 10 points over and over and over. You could argue that we don't have a high here, so in reality, we didn't get a sweep here either. This is a location trade. So is it A+? I wouldn't consider it A+, right? But that would probably be an area that I should have held for a little bit longer. Story of my life, but 10 points 5 times adds up at the end of the day. Scalp retrace, like it. Like it. $10 micros and hold a runner. Probably. Right. Still technically bullish. So no sense being worried about longs. My only concern is how long we are into this movement. Okay. See, that's a good location for it. Okay. Off of that candle. That's ballsy of you, Luke. I guess because it held the midpoint. Was that the aggressiveness? All right. All right. Good conviction. That's cool. I would have liked to see it on one of these ones. And the only reason that I mentioned that is because we want to see it try to rally. This just kind of opened and went lower. We need to see that push fail. That will give you an added win rate in Confluence. But very good conviction on that. Right? I love the idea of the target. Right? Where you're taking it to the retracement. Even though this area is the area we're looking at for this, we're still bullish, which means that our shorts are not confirmation shorts. What else we got in here? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, is this SBS that you're looking at, Aziz? V, that's hilarious. You can make that back, bro. I honestly don't know enough about SBS, but is that a long pattern that you're looking at with that? All right, we've got a higher time frame push. Cool. Or at least we can look at it being a 15-minute drive, and now we've got lethargic movement coming in. Similarly to what we're kind of looking at with this, being, say, a 4-hour or higher drive down. And now we've got small swings coming in on the 15. Two touches of a zone, second sweeps the first. Oh, okay, so you're looking at this and this inside of here. And this perhaps inside of this one. Oops. This one here. Yeah. So the old kind of Dave the Rave pattern. For you guys that yeah. Go back test. Oh man. It sounded similar, didn't it? Yeah. Nightmares. Right. So, internal swing. Cool. Still holding. If we're looking at target, I suppose I can get rid of this nonsense now. We've got our zone here, which is in reality this now. Right? Not technically a zone, but this is the area of direction that I'm looking at for pivot. What's that there from? Oh, it's the midpoint of our higher zone. That's what it is. I should really color these a little bit differently. All right, so we see that we're really consolidating around am I looking at here? This area here. sort of a higher time frame swing that delivered lower underneath all this liquidity. But we tapped into our SMDR, right? So should we fail, God, that was an explosion. There's Powell. And all this fun stuff, I didn't even look at the time. Yeah, give me back my longs. Give me back my longs. And we've got this high here at 31. Oh, so that's why it spiked. Capital bought. Got it. Okay. I did forget the magnet. That's true. That's true. Right? Show us the chart. We'll show you the news, right? Or tell you the news. Money printer go brrr. Who's going long up here making money? It's our midpoint, 60s. Got out too early. Yeah, I was in a couple of longs. Definitely.
Order submitted. Order submitted.
Yeah. They make it challenging on both sides sometimes, right? And in reality, I guess it wasn't that challenging. I was just concerned about us being so late in swings, but the idea of only looking long despite what's going on here short, right? A couple of good short opportunities. And by that, I mean probably the best one would have been somewhere in here. And I use that loosely as I didn't get a sweep and failure. I'm not expecting this to be, well, that's not true, right? When we identified this, this is kind of what you want to see for strong pushes down. And it's a credible top, similar to this, right? So if you're short, say we're short in here, your expectation is this candle's low. And then it's, well, obviously this candle's low, obviously just got taken, but you're looking for a trade back into the midpoint, right? Should we sweep and fail a protected low? In this case, it swept all the liquidity that wasn't part of structure, leaving this protected low behind, which it technically does, right? Now what you're doing is you're looking for a 1 minute change in order flow from bearish to bullish to get in line with. Right? Make it easy on yourselves. Rather than fighting the 15-minute trying to, you know, get short. Might have made some money here. Would have probably got stopped out here. Right? This delivered a little bit. I suppose if you got in with a really good entry in here, you would have been fine. Right? Consider longs from yesterday if you weren't spot on with higher time frame delivery. Right? This is fine. This, other than here, you're wrecked. Wrecked. Now here we are. Finally into the midpoint. Still not a credible top, in my opinion. We've got to come back down. We don't have to come back down. Sorry. Silly me. Thinking I moved the market. We've got this area here. Yes, we've got our higher time frame zone that we expect to trade back into at some point. In order to do that, we've got to have credible failure above. Yikes. Wow. Whoop. Again, out a little bit too early. Boom. Right? Just looking for a trade back in. Probably silly to be out this soon. But I was expecting a push back down at least, given how violent that was. Silly. Ugh. Thanks, Cal. All right. How do you know to stay out of this or this? You're expecting, right? So when you back test and you study, look at this nonsense. God damn. Well, that's going to make me look very, very silly. Talking about it not being a credible top and not holding for it. Back to what I was saying. Right? At minimum, CRT, by the way, sweeping underneath this and failing, my minimum target should have been this candle. So, idiota. You can be happy but unsatisfied. Right? Happy but unsatisfied. I make 20K a week. I'm unsatisfied. I appreciate how far I've come. And I implore all of you guys to really appreciate how far you've come. That's right. You can only focus on stuff that's in your control. Right? If you're chasing outcome, then that's always going to move and that'll never provide fulfillment. Even when you guys get to be consistently profitable, that won't provide fulfillment. Right? You focus on the process and you let the market do its thing, right? So I'm not even looking at my P&L right now. My expectation is green, sure, right? But I had 3 red days this month. Deadly Stotts, right? That would have been a $4,000 banger. And in reality, everything that I talk about, right? If you're long here, your stop's there, cool. Your stop's here, now your stop's here, now your stop's here, now your stop's here, and your target's hit. So, yeah, very unsatisfied with how I traded that. That was very poor execution. Right? So what I'll have to look at is if yesterday, being the challenging day that it was, like I think I took 1 short yesterday and fought with it long for the majority of today. Right? So maybe that's playing in here, which is obviously no bueno. Right? We're past the point of going, oh, I want to be shorting and getting my face ripped off. Right? We're more I don't want to say enlightened because that sounds ridiculous, but our understanding of the market is higher. Right? We're in line with our trend, with what it should do, what we expect it to do. That's what our study gives us. Our study gives us whether we think the top is in credibly or not. And then there's a bunch of factors that go into that, right? So the sauce with it is, have we swept here? Yes, this is a massive failure, but we need to see more than just this for failure, don't we? We need to see more than just this for failure, don't we? And in fact, that little bit of information would have kept you guys out of trouble this entire morning. I thought you killed it yesterday, Maury, didn't you? That's fine. I don't care where it's at, bro. As long as you're practicing the right things, it doesn't matter if it's on PA, eval, backtesting, or sim. Right? And the only reason I mention that is to not do yourself a disservice with it. Yeah, so it's kind of the environment that we're in is we're drowning in information and we're starving for wisdom. Wisdom will give you consistency in the market because now you're not following pattern. Right? You're studying how the market moves. You're not studying an entry model. So when you see things and you go, okay, if it fails here, then what happens, right? What's our expectation? You know, like if it fails here, like, yeah, I'm obviously out of this trade and I'm going to be kicking myself for the rest of the day. So apologies, but you will likely have to endure that. Right? If we fail here at the top of this range with this high, what's our expectation? Right? How many swings are we at? Does this count as something similar to what we've got? Have we completed our objective? You could argue we have. I'm definitely sitting on my hands right now because while we're incredibly bullish, we're also getting late in the trend. All trends end in what? Right? So if we're going to fail, 1, 2, maybe 3, death, if we're going to fail at all. And this is how you start forecasting things. We still got our area above here. Now I am not shorting above highs trying to catch death. Right? Because my account will likely catch it first. I don't need to be early, but I do need to be right. You're going to go long on this candle. You're not going long as it's going down. You're going long as it's bounced and is going up. And guess what? If you're right, you'll know pretty quick. Luke, you've traded it long enough that you have an idea, right? You've got your structure. You know. We don't need to be early. Your short here was a great idea. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Still haven't taken here. I'm sitting on my hands right now. Look at how much nonsense I have on my chart. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. Get rid of these. Probably get rid of that too. You could argue we're dealing with this right now. Sitting on my hands currently. Yeah, I mean, he speaks, sure, but it's the most expensive hello in the world. It's having a hell of a time with this. Should we fail, we trade back up into this consolidation. Okay. Man, these are violent, aren't they? What is that candle? 25 points? But going from one side to the other? My goodness. Definitely a little caution from this imbalance holding. But, my goodness.
Order submitted. Order canceled.
Yup. Did anybody take a short in there, by the way? That was challenging to hold on to. Tom might have considered it with the imbalance. No? Yep. Can understand it entirely. Right? Hitting the midpoint of a prior zone, not something I typically like to short into. Right? If it doesn't go now, I'm definitely not interested in shorting. When do you like to use the wicks as zones? How do you mean? Ah, you're talking about like the midpoint of this? When intense buying came off of it. Right? So like ICT calls it consequent encroachment. I look at just how violent this move was. This was the origin of it. Right? So could you argue this is a valid short? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was an ICT thing. That's CE. Right? But what information's cool, but you got to use it properly. For example, you would have gotten wrecked taking an imbalance trade off of this. Equivalently, if you were holding for a new low, you would have gotten wrecked taking it there as well, because you have to factor in the midpoint of the zone. You've got to factor in, okay, so we're short, but what's going on down here? Is it doing what we expect? If it's not, guess what? It's doing the opposite. Get out of Dodge. Right? Now, you might have also argued that you're long in here until you see something else. And that's also valid. Yeah, so this became a zone. Right? So we can say that this is an area that we'd be looking at least for, if it fails, that it should deliver something strong. Right? We didn't actually even tap back into the prior zone with that. But look at this. Now, one of the things that I'm curious about is because we actually had this high put in and we tried pushing up and failing here. Sending us back down, yes, into the midpoint. Sorry, the midpoint's here. Right? We didn't sweep this high, but we did attempt to fail, which is quite a bit different than this. So it will be interesting to me if we create an SNDR at the top here, push up, fail, trade back in, and then go. If we don't do that and we just spike, that's something else entirely. Nice sweep above and then below. Ooh, she's getting violent. Order speeding up. Somebody's gonna get nuked here pretty soon. We could be. Right? We are sweeping highs though. That makes it a little bit more dangerous. Right? I liked this for a new high. I've made my daily goals, so I'm actually done. Controversial perhaps, but this is just too damn entertaining, isn't it? Oh, bang. Is that the high a day? Probably not. But it could be. That's an SNDR. Hesitation from what? Fear of being wrong? Okay. Oh. What do we get now? That's a nice sweep of that. I'd be more interested if we had failed this high. Right? This is challenging. Might deliver at least one more push up. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Finally. Again, guess it was out way too soon. My goodness. My goodness. That was my target there. The low of that candle there. Right? Expectation, if we're going to go down, would be at least to trade back up in and then go. But anyway. Yes. Right? And there's a reason for that too. Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. Right? Consider this long in here. How uncomfortable was it? Pretty phenomenal. Pretty phenomenal trade. Very uncomfortable. Right? But don't mistake uncomfortability for, like, if you're in and the market's not moving the way you want it to, consider being on the wrong side. Right? Consider shorting in here. And you've got sideways movement. Is that uncomfortable? Yeah, of course it is. And then you get your face ripped off. Right? So don't just sit in it because it's uncomfortable. You have to have awareness of what it's doing. Say that short here, how it's grinding down uncomfortably, not flying, and then all of a sudden just pukes. That could be challenging as well. Right? Look how bad my entry was. But I want to see that failure and attempt to rally and then fail. My thesis right up until I hit that button was that we were going to put in a new high. But if price is telling you something else, trade what you see. Trade what you see. That looks pretty credible now, doesn't it? How are we doing today? Are we green? Are we entertained? You guys like the executions? Or is it annoying? Right? But like that entry, what was I even in at? 81.25? Look how bad that is in reality. Right? 81, like here. Right? Like 10 points off the high. Depends on your risk tolerance, right? I suppose the ideal, if you're even taking a trade in here, is probably somewhere around that, I suppose, right? We failed underneath this candle. We expect to push up. The ideal would be, I suppose, trading up and then trading through this candle here. So I guess 84, so it's not that far off. It just looks bad. The conservative trade would be snaps down, trades back in, and then goes. So it depends on you guys' risk tolerance. Right? What I like, I don't know if you guys recall earlier, what do we have here now? Right. So you start to learn, seeing this here, we were talking about wanting that third shove for that fail. This is kind of where you start to look at predicting price. And I use that word very loosely because it's a dangerous road. But when you get there, believe me, people will come at you. Like, I went from here to here today and I missed all this. I went from here to here and I missed all this. So in reality, I traded this like shite. But people will say you trade in hindsight or whatever else. Enjoy your weekend, Martin. Nice work on being green, my friend. Paper trading maintenance. That's a beautiful trade though, Jay. Guys making too much money and they shut them down. We'll go for another 20 minutes on this stream, and then I'll call it just so the recording doesn't... What about the rest of you lurkers in there? Anybody want to go over any ideas? Whether red or not? Just noticed the M5. The old 5-minute chestnut. Yeah. Yeah, this area in here. Yeah, so this obviously will look really nice in hindsight. The target of it being here was obviously silly, and I'm still kicking myself for it. The idea was that we traded up into the midpoint here. We didn't break this high, so our two options are that this is SNDR and we just go like this and then like that, or we're going to make one more push, right? So even this was just me taking profits too soon, but the idea was that if we got a falling knife, we had this prior range which we need to take a trade out of. So the three options that we have when we trade into a range, we trade at the top, right? We trade to the midpoint of the area, which in reality would have been somewhere around here. Or we sweep it entirely and then come back up. So when I saw that we traded down and then violently bounced, I got in on the wave and it actually just kept going. But the idea was that we were at unfinished business up higher. Right, now this high failed to make a new low. We chopped around in here. We then decided to trade higher. So the expectation was that we take this high, right? So we built an SNDR here, which we've now wrecked. And after that, we're now grinding lower. You see we actually tap back into it, right? So a little inverse SNDR play. But this will be interesting. And I'm definitely done trading for the day, I think. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But they never show losses. Mind you, I guess that's one of their things today. You guys being on stream with me can, I talk about the red days, and you definitely see the executions the following day after the red day, right? Hard to hide on stream, true, right? But people outside of the bullpen, they'll throw things out there that we're unprofitable in here, that we don't know what we're talking about or whatever else, and they don't see the reality of what we do day in and day out, right? Live, no less. Small minds discuss people, right? Small minds discuss people. Here we go. Now what? The feels. Suppose there was a little scalp to be made long in here. Right? But we've got our failure in here now. We've broken SMDR. The only place I'd be looking long would be maybe the midpoint of this, which should line up with that. Yeah, literally. You know how I get my payouts? Most of my days are $600. You see crazy days on Top Step, right? Like today, for example. But I don't, I'm not showing you guys the payouts that I get from them either, but it's like, let the copier do the heavy lifting and focus on small, refined days. The majority of people in here that have gotten payouts, number one skill is learning to stay out of trouble, right? There was no entry in here, for example. We're charging lower. Beautiful short. Yeah, me too. Like 200 points. Right? If only somebody would have said that, hey, we've actually got a 3 drives pattern here, and this could be a catastrophic failure. I blame Tom. Who's probably sitting in this, the legend. Yeah. Oof. Right? Get yourself, like, I mean, I don't know how much you guys make in your 9 to 5 or prior lives or whatever your guys' financial situations are like, right? But if you've got 2 PAs and you're consistent, like, that's 8K a month. That's just on 2. You don't need 10 or 20. You can work up to that. But the barrier to changing lives is actually a lot lower than you think. But it's scary. That's where philosophy and psychology comes in. But you need a strategy and you need your wisdom first. And then you can refine. Believe me, I will be doing a lot of that this weekend. Right? I think we're at 18 people have got their first payouts ever now. Strategy helps, but once you get out of your own way, man, your problems don't go away, but they do change. Where are we going to now? What's our first line of defense? What's our first expectation? If. Right? Not there yet, but first line of defense coming in. First, that open. Second, here. What do we get here? We gonna trade back up into the prior range? Is that low even? There we are. 706.50. Or do we just take all this back up here? That's a rough failure. It's a really rough failure. 3 minutes. Be interesting if we can't even break structure in 3 minutes. Oh man. She is violent today. 3 minutes till next hourly. Whoop. Oh, maybe she's not ready. That'd be a failure if it can. But that was a strong shove into it. She's going to fail. She's going to fail now. Or she's going to go flying. Whoop. I like that sweep. Right, so I was looking at this here. I was noticing the indecision. We were kind of blipping up, running out contracts, then coming back in. I'm actually adjusting my target to this. We'll see. But not giving this a lot of room to spike back up if that was just a firefly. Yeah, gone. Gone. Probably goes down further, but we'll see. All right. I see bats is here before I get shown how to swing properly. We're gonna call the stream here, lads. We'll do an early market review later on. And yeah, hit me up, please. I love hearing about your guys' trades, your journey, your struggles, your triumphs, everything that's going on. I am looking for somebody to take on some of the recording of here to make sure that it's done in a timely fashion for people. So hit me up with that as well. And I will see you guys later on.